And two of the smartest in this area are joining me right now. Foreign policy expert Harley Lippman, executive director at Polaris National Security, and former State Department advisor, special advisor to Iran, Gabriel Nerona. Gentlemen, a pleasure to have you today on such a momentous day, too, for the Middle East.
Pleasure to be here.
If we can, before we get into sort of what Netanyahu and Donald Trump may be sort of looking to tackle, I'd like to get your reaction. Gabriel, obviously his thoughts and his comments on Iran, Donald Trump, was really it was fascinating to watch, where he says, I would be open to diplomacy if they don't get a nuclear weapon. But, you know, Iran obviously has a very different outlook on what they want to do. This type of talk, this type of, openness with Donald Trump, how do you think it will be received by the mullahs in Iran?
First of all, it's important to know this is very consistent with his policy the first term. Right after he killed Qasem Soleimani, he went out and he said, as long as I am president, Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. That policy has continued today. He's laying down that clear line, but giving the regime an opportunity to say, do they want to do this the easy way or the hard way? The easy way is the diplomatic way. If they come and they're willing to give up their nuclear program and make other concessions. The question is, does the supreme leader of Iran actually want to do that? Or is he hell-bent on trying to destroy Israel, the United States, and getting a nuclear weapon? That's an open question for the regime.
It is. And Harley, the last administration, there were people from Iran who have sort of snuck their way into the White House. I mean, that's pretty wide knowledge that there is questions about the State Department being infiltrated and, questions. A very different message coming today. In fact, I want to play a little bit of the tough talk Donald Trump said. We know there's assassination plots against him from Iran. And this is what he said, if God forbid something was to ever to happen to him.
Well, they haven't done that. And that would be a terrible thing for them to do, not because of me. If they did that, they would be obliterated. That would be the end. I've left instructions. If they do it, they get obliterated.
First time we've heard him say that about leaving instructions. Donald Trump, no doubt, a changed man since surviving 2 assassination attempts. But I think a lot of this, and pick up on this, is the Middle East could be part of a really big legacy for him. And he's done a lot of work as in his first administration, as Gabriel just pointed out, in an effort towards peace.
Well, I think that the challenge that you have now is that you're dealing with a country, Iran, that just can't be trusted. So even if they want to go back and discuss a new nuclear arms deal, they're going to lie and cheat. Anybody who knows that society and knows the philosophy and ideology of its leaders knows that. It's like making a deal with Nazi Germany. I mean, you really think you're going to rely on that? I mean, I just find that to be a little bit odd. I don't see how you could really make that happen. And more importantly, given what President Trump said, and you had said that there are threats on his life, what does that say? This is a regime that wants to destroy the United States, wants to destroy Israel. Believe them. Believe what they say. It's arrogance on our part to think we know better what they mean than their own words. They hate us. And even if, let's say, they don't build a nuclear weapon, they'll use other means to continue their fight against the United States, Israel, and our allies. That's who they are. It's like Hamas. Their whole mission is to destroy us. And until we really fully understand that and recognize that, and again, you don't have to take my word for it. Read their press, read their articles, read their speeches. They talk about it all the time, day in and day out, year after year, decade after decade.
Israel is in the middle of this ceasefire, but it's fragile, and they're only in phase one. I want to play a little bit. Steve Witkoff, the Middle East envoy, and also National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, speaking to the press earlier, talking about the hostages, which no doubt is something that Donald Trump and Netanyahu are speaking about as well during this meeting.
We're focused on making sure that phase one completes exactly as it should complete, that all the hostages who were a part of that deal come home, including bodies.
Okay, but then there's phase two and phase three. And Gabriel, phase two includes, potentially if the ceasefire is breaking down, Netanyahu will have the right to go back in and completely eradicate Hamas. And many say he has no choice.
Phase two is a really difficult part. It requires more advanced concessions on Israel's part that are difficult for Netanyahu and his coalition. And the question is Hamas going to give up all of the Americans, all the bodies that they need to? And are they actually interested in peace? What I suspect, and what I think everyone else suspects, is that they're purely using this as ability to rearm, re-equip, and launch their next offensive against Israel. And so I think Israel understands that there can be no peace with Hamas while it's in this category. And so this is a question of how long do we let this charade go on both sides before Israel really needs to go and wipe them out again.
You know, and that's phase two. Phase three would be about rebuilding. And there was a lot of discussion as well during Donald Trump's news conference about putting people, Palestinians in Egypt or in Jordan. But if phase two is, not completed, we don't even get there, which is sad but true. But also this other executive order was pulling the U.S. from UNRWA and the UN Human Rights Council. Are those leverage points, Harley, that may help deter some of Iran's, goals in any way, shape, or form? Does that help as far as the pressure by pulling out of the UN in those capacities by Donald Trump?
It does, and I love this president because he's doing the right thing. The UN and UNRWA, the human rights organization, is nothing more than a joke. You have dictatorships that commit horrible crimes against human beings, their own citizens, and they chair human rights committees at the UN. This is craziness. So we should probably even pull out of the UN and UNRWA. There are many refugee groups around the world that are in more dire straits than the Palestinians, that don't get a fraction of the money the Palestinians get. Palestinians are getting money 4 generations later after what they claim is their displacement in 1948. 4 generations of people taking money. There's a point where the Palestinians need to make a decision. Do they want to be victims, survivors, or navigators? They should try to be navigators, build an organization that has democratic institutions, that wants to have peace with their neighbor, so they can invest money in schools, hospitals, innovation, bring up their people and have a better life. I feel very sorry for the Palestinian people and the Iranian people. They are suffering every day. And unless you have regime change in Iran and in Gaza, you will just have more war. It's just putting a Band-Aid on it. It will not end. So you can end it, but you need to have victory.
What would be a victory out of this meeting? In our last 20 seconds, Gabriel, final thoughts here. What would be a win for Trump and Netanyahu to walk away with later this evening to show the world?
I think they want to have a united front on what the path forward is for a ceasefire deal, for what is required of Hamas and their backers in Iran for there to be reconstruction. And I think that means an agreement that there is no more Hamas in Gaza.
Gabriel Nerona, Harley Lippman, I appreciate you both for your comments today as we watch and await more word from the White House in this monumental meeting. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, Bianca.